for real reasons. In fact, let me divert for just a second. Anybody that thinks that I'm talking out my ass, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Let me tell you something. Pay attention. President Trump was friends with Richard Nixon after Richard Nixon resigned from office. Do you know who got Richard Nixon into office? Who was protecting him behind the scenes and pushing him? That was all Rockefeller stuff. Nixon was a Rockefeller man. Kissinger, his cohort, was a Rockefeller man. So he came from the inside. He understood how the system worked. Let me tell you one other thing. Do you know what Nixon did when he was in the Navy in World War II? You know what he did immediately after coming out of the Navy? Do you know what the premise was for him being critical to Eisenhower, to Ike, when Ike ran for the presidency? Why was Nixon chosen as the vice president? I'll bet you there's not even one person in your audience that knows the answer to this. I'm going to tell you right now. Nixon was the head of the legal side of the paperclip project, replacing paperclip scientists in various locations around the U.S. from the Navy side. Getting the right schools, universities, the right minders to work with them and get them on the right projects, etc. He knew where all of the monsters were buried. He knew what was going on behind the scenes. When Nixon was on the way out at the White House, when his resignation was obviously going to have to happen, when he knew that absolutely was going to happen, for at least a year and a half or 2 years prior to stepping down, perhaps longer, President Nixon had been trying to set up his own intelligence gathering agency, his own intelligence gathering operation. It was called Project Houston. Why was that critical? Because he wasn't getting accurate intelligence from the CIA. He wasn't getting the real scoop. And he needed an agency that was beholden to the president in order to get accurate information to act on. He knew that he was, his eyes and ears were telling him lies. How can you make good decisions when all the information you're getting from all the people around you is lies? So he wanted an independent way to gather intelligence so he could weigh the information he was getting and make better decisions. And he didn't want it to be tied to any of the existing agencies because he knew they were all corrupt. They were all run by the families. He wanted something independent, so he did the Houston Project, and he knew how Washington worked. And the Houston Project included committees that were not wholesome necessarily. He knew the players he was going after, both here in our country and overseas. And so he dealt with players that were unscrupulous, let's just put it that way. It doesn't make him a bad guy any more than it would make the bad guys if we're dealing with our own agencies are insane. So at the end of his presidency, during the Houston Project, he had a courier come to the White House, to an area not in the upper area of the White House, a ground floor area, and brought him in secretly, essentially from another building, another street. And by memory, think about what I'm about to tell you right now. From memory, he wrote down the formula for extracting free energy from the ground plane of the electrical charge going across the surface of the Earth. Essentially, not energy from nothing, but energy from the existing charge state flow of energy across the surface of the Earth. Free energy, in a sense. Low cost energy. He wrote that formula down from memory, taped it to the courier, and sent the courier to go see Kissinger. Why did he send him to Kissinger? Because Kissinger was tied to the Rockefellers. He didn't send that formula that way to give them in other places, so that if after he stepped down, the agreement wasn't kept, and not prosecute him, he could release that. It was a threat to all their operations. But it was also a time capsule out into the future. And then Nixon, of all the people to befriend after he left office, who does he befriend? He befriends Trump. Now, why is Trump critical? Because Trump's uncle was the guy who was the professor from MIT, the deep state operator, who was sent to Tesla's apartment to help sort out Tesla's documents after Tesla died or was murdered, and decide where they went, how they were to be archived, and who got them. And he personally read them. He knew what was there, knew some of this information that I'm talking about. So Tesla's the person that had access to all those papers, that's President Trump's uncle, his dad's brother, very tied to the family. Nixon befriended Trump and created a time capsule. He gave Trump the information about how things really worked. He gave him the understanding of the political connections, the players behind the scenes, the names you've never heard, the people behind the Rothschilds, the people behind the Vatican, the people behind the Federal Reserve systems around the world. He schooled him so that it was his message in a bottle, his time capsule to be pulled out some later point in time. Do you know that beside President Trump's desk in his office, he has a picture with a letter in it from Pat Nixon. And in the letter, Pat Nixon says, "I hope you run for president someday. I know if you do run, you'll win, and you will be a great president." I'm paraphrasing slightly. Why is that relevant? Because Trump understood from personal tutoring by a former president who was attacked by these same players, who knew all the mechanisms behind the scenes, who was there back in World War II dealing with the Nazis, who was there with Ike when they were trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes with their alien attacks at Roswell and Area 51. You know that Ike, when he heard what was going on out at Area 51, and he was barred from going there. They said they wouldn't let him go out to Area 51. And he says, "I'll get Third Army together. We'll come out and we'll storm the place. I'm going out there to find out what's going on." They were going to stop him. He wasn't putting up with it for a second. But he also understood there was way more going on behind the scenes than we understood. And that's why he said he did that speech. Beware of the military-industrial complex. Who's running that military-industrial political complex now? After Nixon left office, what they put in place under Carter? SES, Senior Executive Service. The minders, the controllers, the people between the people in high office that you see and know the names of, the secretaries of all these agencies, the cabinet level members, the president, the Congress, and the civil service workers below it, SES, the keystone. And we have a keystone of our own now, military intelligence and National Security Agency, with Admiral Rogers having come over to the Trump side, identifying the problem, Trump having been schooled by Nixon, Trump having been helped and assisted by people who Nixon directed him to during all these intervening years, and the military-industrial Army War College people that have put together this plan to recapture control of our country back from these people who've taken control, because the U.S. is a captured operation, has been up to this moment in time. We're in a war, recapturing not just control of our country, but control of the the world from these slave masters, these globalists, these Satanists, these Baal worshippers, these Tanit worshippers, who intend to destroy us all with their world war and rebuild it like Nero rebuilding after they burned Rome to the ground. This is our moment, and if your people field cannot explain this to their neighbors, their friends, to others across the world, and make it stick and have them understand we're in a war, then we're toast, because we won't get the numbers. This is a numbers game. We need as many on deck as possible. If we bring everybody, we win in a day. If we bring a handful, that handful, guys like you and me feel at the tip of the spear, at the tip of the arrow, will get crushed and ground to dust. President Trump has put not just himself in the line of fire, he's put every member of his family and every close associate on the chopping block. Do you think for 1 second, if we lose, that they're going to give any quarter to us? They're going to quarter us, draw us and quarter us, kill us all, send the pieces to the four winds. They will destroy us, but they'll never take a chance that we would ever rise up again. We have one shot at this point in time. There's not going to be a second chance. This is your one time in your entire life when you're going to get a chance to recapture the world, not just for yourself, but your family. And those of you that have started this fight, who've begun to engage, who weren't so timid or afraid or scared to let others go be the pointy tip of the spear only and just watch at a distance, those of you that have actually come down onto the field of battle and decided to engage with us, at this point, it's all or nothing. Because you've already been identified. If we don't win, we're dead. No one will be left of the Trump family. No one will be left of the associations, the businesses related to Trump if we lose. And neither will it be for me personally or you, Field, or any of the other members of your audience. We're the enemy as far as they're concerned. There's only one outcome for this. One of us is still alive and kicking, and the other one is gone. This is a fight to the death. And look at the way that President Trump is having to engage this. It's a take no prisoners approach. We're not negotiating. They got one option: surrender.
All right, thanks, Phil.
You're welcome.
Bye.